Díríb agus bhfuair géad míle fáilte ar an maidin speisialta seo go sí an bhrú nó an ránteach nua mar a thugtar air freisin atá site I gceart lá brún na bóine a gundé na mí. Hello, céad míle fáilte, and you're all very, very welcome to this live stream broadcast of the Winter Solstice from Newgrange here on Ireland's ancient east. My name is Maura Trasny-Rúil and I'm going to be coming with you live from Newgrange today and tomorrow, meeting all the wonderful people connected with Newgrange, hearing their stories and finding out more about this 5,000-year-old monument. And let's not forget, of course, the amazing spectacle that happens here on the shortest days of the year, where during the winter solstice, the morning sunlight shines directly into this chamber here, illuminates the chamber and marks the end of winter and the beginning of new life. Now, we expect the light to enter the chamber here in about 20 minutes or so, and we will be bringing you live inside the chamber itself. We have live cameras set up inside the chamber so you can witness and experience this amazing ancient phenomenon wherever you are watching us all over the world. And be sure to let us know where you're watching us from by using the hashtag Solstice2017. Now, to give you a little more background on the winter solstice itself, have a look at this.
Each year on December 21st, the sun reaches its lowest arc in the northern hemisphere's sky. This results in the shortest day of the year, an occasion celebrated as the sun's rebirth by Ireland's ancient astronomers. Incredibly, Newgrange pays homage to this annual event. Every morning on the winter solstice, sunlight floods its inner chamber. Step inside this ancient tomb and follow in the footsteps of those who built it 5,000 years ago.
Well, Lumanish Tha Leoncha Lenihan on OPW. Leoncha, who works with the Office of Public Works, works here on this site and is an expert on all things Newgrange. Leoncha, thanks a million for talking to us. We know you're a very busy woman this morning. Can you give us a bit of background on Newgrange itself, Leoncha, and what you expect to happen here over the next few days? Because there's an atmosphere already building here this morning with visitors from Ireland and all over the world.
Well, Newgrange is part of a large complex of passage tombs. It's located in a bend of the River Boyne in County Meath, near the town of Drogheda and the village of Slane. As you mentioned, it's a 5,000-year-old passage tomb. Would have had many functions. It would have been a place of worship, a place of pilgrimage and a place of burial. This year is particularly special because this is the 50th anniversary of Professor O'Kelly seeing the light in Newgrange for the first time. That was in 1967. The roof box above the doorway, which allows the sun to enter, was rediscovered in the second year of excavation in 1963, but Professor O'Kelly had to wait until 1967, due to bad weather, to actually see the phenomena in the chamber itself. So he saw the light in the darkness in 1967.
It's absolutely amazing that up to 50 years ago, no one realised that this ancient phenomenon existed. Can you tell us about what actually happens inside the chamber itself?
Well, we have 20 lottery winners here with us this morning. We'll go inside in about 10 minutes' time. We'll turn off the lights, we'll gather ourselves, we'll wait patiently. What we really want is for that cloud to disappear. So at 8:54, the sun will, well, the cloud is in the way unfortunately, but the sun will just clear the horizon, and at 8:58 you'd get your first evidence of light along the chamber floor inside. Now initially it is literally a needle of light. That's just as the sun has risen in the sky. The ray of light then lengthens and widens along the chamber floor. At 9:15 it's at its fullest. It's about 17 centimetres wide and the chamber is lit.
So how many people can fit inside the chamber itself? Because from the outside it looks quite large, but inside the chamber is quite small.
It's quite tiny. We'd fit about 24 people comfortably inside.
So we will actually go live inside the chamber now. It's obviously very dark in there at the moment, but we have live cameras set up to bring you inside the chamber later on. And with the use of modern technology and electricity, we were able to light up the chamber for you and show us our camera positions. So can you explain to us, Leoncha, what we expect to see from all these camera angles?
Well, I said you literally, as the sun would rise, you'd get you'd have the sun in the roof box. Then it arrives first on the chamber floor inside, and then, as I said, just lengthens and widens. It will remain in the passage until at least 9:30, 20 to 10, but it will have exited the chamber by about 9:15.
And can any other light make its way through the chamber, or is it just through the light box or the roof box alone?
No, there will be a certain amount of daylight through both the doorway and the roof box.
And are there any famous spiral carvings, or what can the visitors who witness this phenomenon inside the chamber see from the inside?
There is one particular piece of art in the back recess. It's the tri-spiral. Our regular visitors will be very familiar with that. It's the one piece of art synonymous with the monument. And when Professor O'Kelly rediscovered the roof box in '63, he was a little unsure as to its purpose, but did realise it was orientated south of east. There was also talk in the area of that spiral lighting up at Christmas time. So putting two and two together, he assumed it was aligned towards the rising sun on the shortest days of the year.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating. Of course, it's all weather dependent, and this is Ireland. We cannot control the weather, but we will hope that on the horizon we get some bit of ray of light coming through into the chamber. Thank you very much, Leoncha, for joining us. We will catch up with Leoncha later on. If you're just joining us at home, we're coming to you live from Newgrange here on Ireland's ancient east for the Winter Solstice, where we are hoping in about 20 minutes or so there will be a ray of light coming directly in from the dawn sunlight into this 5,000-year-old monument, and it will illuminate the chamber. And we have one of our lucky solstice lottery winners with us inside here. As Leoncha explained there, it's very small inside the chamber, so only 10 lucky solstice lottery winners get to go inside and witness this phenomenon from the inside. Kelly is one of those, and you have 10 guests with you as well. Kelly, can you tell me a little bit about where you've come from and how did you manage to end up here?
So I am from the United States, from Omaha, Nebraska, which is right in the middle of the country. And my husband and I were here in September on a visit, and just thought the place was very magical. And as we were leaving, they said, "Oh, throw your name in. There's this lottery." And so we just did it kind of on a lark. We never thought we'd be chosen. And I was chosen. We were actually still on vacation when we found out about it. So I'm very excited to be back, and decided to come back with our children and spend the Christmas holiday here. So very excited.
And had you heard of Newgrange before that?
You know, in full disclosure, I had not. My husband had. He had traveled around here when he was in college, but didn't make it here. And then so we wanted to make sure we made it this trip around, and have since done a lot of research and just thought, this is just really a magical place.
How does it feel now that you are finally here?
Unbelievable. So excited. Cannot wait to go in. Honestly, I don't even care if the sun comes out. I'm just so excited because I just think it's a really, really neat experience.
And what are you expecting when you go inside the chamber itself?
If it were perfect, I think it'd be like Raiders of the Lost Ark with a big beam of light coming in. But I just think it'll be just a really kind of almost spiritual, like really magical and spiritual. So really cool.
And do you plan on staying around for a few days? Do you plan on spending Christmas here in Ireland?
Yes, we're going to stay through the 26th, and we're going to experience all that Ireland has to offer for the Christmas holiday.
Well, luckily for you, Kelly, and for all the Stott family, and for everyone who has travelled here today for the Winter Solstice or who plan on travelling to Ireland, there is an awful lot more to see and do here on top of Newgrange on Ireland's ancient east. Check this out.
You may think you know the story of Ireland's ancient East. But it's a story of many plot twists, cliffhangers, and bigger-than-life characters. Of civilizations and barbarians, mythical creatures and divine beings. Of brave knights and damsels in distress. This isn't a story you'll find in a book. To truly understand it, you'll need to take a journey to unearth the footprints of the past. Find the hidden secrets in the great halls. Feel the emotion in the music. Hear tall tales from local storytellers. To uncover a story 5,000 years in the making, you need to start at the beginning. Ireland's ancient East. Go there and let the story unfold.
That is just a taster of some of the amazing things that you can see and do on Ireland's ancient East throughout the whole year. And we're going to keep it local now. I'm joined by Ross Kenny from Boyne Boats, the Chéad Míle Fáilte. Tell me, Ross, about Boyne Boats.
What we do is we're a new business, and we do guided tours on the Boyne River and Canal, mainly at the Battle of the Boyne site at the moment, but hopefully next year making that connection up towards Newgrange. Boats they use are Kerry Naval Kirks, so traditional Irish boats that with a unique twist that they're actually used in the Game of Thrones as well, the TV show.
So you're no stranger to the spotlight. You've been featured on Game of Thrones.
To a degree, yeah. I pop up in the background quite a bit in the boats that are on the show, yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the trip that the people or the visitors that come to Boyne Boats can experience?
Well, what we do is we take up to 8 people. Everybody gets a paddle, so you get to do a little bit of work, but it's nice, gentle, easy work, so any age group can do it, really. So
you don't have to have any previous experience?
Absolutely not, no. The youngest I've had out is 3 and the oldest is 86, so it's pretty much there for everybody. Yeah, it's a guided tour, so you get the history, especially around the Battle of the Boyne, because we paddled through the battle site and the battlefield down there. And then the connection up towards Newgrange and all the possibilities around our ancestors being mariners and seafarers, as well as farmers and engineers and architects. So we cover a bit of everything, and then there's ferry trails and stuff on the water's edge as well, so everybody gets a bit of something.
And what kind of visitors do you expect to Boyne Boats, or who have you had so far?
So far it's been, as I say, it's been a bit of everything. Families come, and we'll tailor the tour towards families if needs be. Game of Thrones fans, obviously, who are interested in the fact that the boat and me are in the show, so we get a bit of a kick out of that. And then internationally, quite a few tourists are interested in that, I suppose, the atmosphere, as much as anything, that they get to do a little bit of gentle work, so there's a bit of adventure involved, but the actual atmosphere and where they are and being in a traditional boat on the water in the Boyne Valley, is a big thing for a lot of people as well.
Well, Gur Míle Maith Ross, it sounds like a fascinating day out on Ireland's ancient east. Well, it's time now to check in with the weather conditions because, of course, the winter solstice is all weather dependent. Now, I have been informed that the perfect weather conditions is a cold and frosty morning with no fog, completely cloudless. We're not asking for much in Ireland, but it's not looking great at the moment here. As you can see, there is fog in the sky at the moment, and all we need, though, is that little patch on the horizon for the single ray of light to come through. And this is the light box, and this is the view from the inside the chamber at the moment. So we are looking inside that, and all we need is for that light to illuminate. And if you're just joining us, we're coming to you live from Newgrange here on Ireland's ancient east for the winter solstice, and I'm joined now to tell us a little bit more about the chamber, where we will be going live inside the chamber very, very shortly, by Gabriel Cooney and by Professor Murish O'Sullivan Tá fáilte of Birth. Gabriel, you have a special connection, I suppose, with Newgrange. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I was born in Drogheda and lived there, and as a student came here to work with Professor George Ogan at Nouth, and so I think it had a sort of very important influence on my decision to become an archaeologist. And it's a fascinating place, and I first came here to see the solstice when I was a student in the 1970s.
There are some fascinating puzzles all around Newgrange. Can you tell us a little bit or explain about the diverse materials that were used?
In terms of the stones that make up the monument?
Yes.
Well, we know that some of the materials came locally from what are called the alluvial boulders and stones in the local from the riverbanks. But more importantly, we know, for example, that the large kerbstones that surround the monuments of Nouth and Newgrange probably come from the coast of Clogherhead, about 20 kilometres away. And then they're used both for the external stones and for the main structural stones, the side walls and the roof. And then the decorative stones, as they're often called, that we see behind us here on the facade, the white quartz and the darker granites and granodiorites, the quartz comes from the south, maybe from Wicklow, and the granites from the Cooley and the Mourne Mountains.
And how do they manage to get the stones here? Because they're such large objects.
Well, I think some of them can be brought by people, but your question is really about the large ones. And
yes.
They're probably rafting them, I suspect, along the coast and up the Boyne. And then I'm making it sound very easy. But of course, it was a tremendous feat. Yeah. And I think that was part of the sort of the aura of the monument, that so much effort had gone into making it. Not just one of them, but three of them of this scale. And so it indicates the amount of people that must have been involved. And of course then it became their monument and a kind of expression of their way of life. And that's why I think Newgrange and Nouth and Douth are so important.
And it's absolutely fascinating. Murish, we see some examples around of Neolithic art. What are the typical features of Neolithic art, and which of those can be seen here at Newgrange?
I suppose the classic features of it are that it is geometric, it's non-representational, it's schematic. And if a person didn't know really anything about the society and had to go at interpreting it, you're probably telling more about yourself than you are about Neolithic society. But if you understand the society and what went on a little bit more, you can see some of the things that were going on. So, for example, the art is only part of the elaboration of the stone itself. I think the fact that they chose, as Gabriel spoke about, they chose particular stones. The journey to here, I suspect by the time a stone got as far as Newgrange, it had a personality. And I think they were enhancing that personality a little bit more with the art. We also know that particular types of art occur in particular places in along the tombs, which you will see here at Newgrange.
And there's types of Neolithic monuments nearby as well at Nouth and Douth on Brún na Bóinne. For those who are unfamiliar with this area, can you explain to us about Brún na Bóinne?
I suppose Brún na Bóinne is a landscape. It's a World Heritage Site, as you know, and it's the tombs are mainly on the northern side, virtually all on the northern side of the River Boyne, and I think the River Boyne is probably the secret to Brún na Bóinne. I think it was a very symbolic and mythical river all the way back to the Neolithic, as it has continued to be through early Irish history and into medieval times, I think.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating. Gur Míle Maith Bert. We will be heading inside the chamber very shortly, but first of all, the photographer Alan Betson has been capturing images here of the winter solstice for 20 years, and we had a chance to catch up with Alan yesterday.
Each year the OPW issues an invitation to a member of the Irish Times photographic team to photograph at Newgrange. So this baton has passed from photographer to photographer, and I've managed to grab onto that baton for about 14 years. It really is the one day of the year where there's a large gathering of people outside, there's an air of expectation. Will it or won't it, the sun shine? You get just a mixture of people every single time, it's always different. So inside in the chamber, it's a pretty small space and there's a fair few people on the day. So as a photographer to work in the space, it can be difficult, it can be challenging. It's in the dark, you're on the ground, you're working with fairly slow shutter speeds. Focusing in the dark is quite difficult. We're pretty conscious that we are the eyes of literally hundreds of thousands of people who really want to see really good solstice pictures. But we do take a moment, if and when the sun shines, to appreciate that moment where we just stand back and we just look and you go, wow, that really is spectacular.
Absolutely beautiful images there captured by Alan Betson. We hope to see something like that this morning, but as you can see, it is quite cloudy here at Newgrange at the moment. All we need is for the horizon to clear a small bit so that single ray of light can shine through and enter this 5,000-year-old monument and illuminate the chamber. Now, a lot of visitors have gathered here today from Ireland and from overseas. I've picked two of them here beside me now. Who have we got? What's your own name?
Margaret Downey, Mog Downey.
And where have you come from, Margaret?
I'm just down the road there in Julianstown.
So you'd be familiar with Newgrange. So have you visited here before?
Yes, I absolutely love coming up here on the solstice mornings. It's a bit misty this morning, but we always call that very magical. So hopefully the sky will break and we'll get a glimpse of some of the beautiful light, the morning light.
Have you experienced the winter solstice on a clear morning?
Probably since I've been coming up over the last about 10 years. I've seen the solstice, a beautiful clear morning, maybe twice within that. I was up here in 2011 for the morning of my wedding. So we got married on the 21st of December 2011. I've had a couple of weddings. This is
quite
first.
Special.
Absolutely. My husband's in bed this morning, so I'm here on my own.
So you might get married again this morning. You never know. You might pick someone up.
I might find somebody else, yeah. The hand fasting is over.
So why do you think Newgrange is so special?
Well, in this area, the whole Boyne Valley is really beautiful. Newgrange, with the coming of the light and the darkest days, it really is a symbolic and iconic mound, on the landscape, and it's something that I suppose for thousands and thousands of years reminds us of the intelligence and the beauty that existed way before our own day here. I think that we all need to take a glimpse into the past, and by entering into the chamber and understanding their understandings of the land, of fertility, of the sky, of the alignment with the sun is fascinating. And I wonder, have we moved that far since those days?
It's absolutely amazing that already here this morning there is an atmosphere building, and you have come as well to Newgrange.
Yes,
Where you come from?
I'm just local. I'm from Drogheda myself.
You haven't had that far to travel.
No,
you didn't have to get up too early.
No, not too early this morning.
And what is it about Newgrange that interests you?
Well, I'm a local photographer, so I have, from the photography end, it's probably the most beautiful building around ever, I think. So anyway, it's just beside me, so I photographed it lots of times. The last time I got it was 2000 with the millennium, when the Taoiseach was here, and I got into the chamber and I got a photograph literally that day as well, so I was lucky enough to get it that time. So
you've witnessed this phenomenon from inside the chamber itself.
Yes.
What is that like?
It's fabulous. It's fabulous. It could be a little anticlimax because it doesn't actually light the whole chamber up, but the feel of the light coming in is just magical.
Well, we have live cameras inside the chamber this morning, and we will be bringing this phenomenon to you wherever you're watching all over the world. Now, only our 10 lucky solstice lottery winners get to go inside the chamber with their guests, but you, of course, can come and visit Newgrange all year round on Ireland's ancient East. Here's how you book your tickets. And as we see here, it is still quite cloudy here in Newgrange. Of course, we are here this morning for the winter solstice. We will be heading live inside the chamber very, very shortly now. But we have two special guests with us now. We're moving from the ground to the sky with our next two guests. We have astrophysicist Tom Ray, and we have Frank Prendergast, who is an archaeoastronomer. I hope I got that right, Frank. Tell me, what is an archaeoastronomer?
Essentially, archaeoastronomy looks at prehistoric cultures mostly and how people engaged with the sky as part of their, call it religion or belief system. So in their day-to-day lives and survival, they not only integrated with their landscape, but they also regarded what was in the sky, which to us, we know exactly what's there, but to them, it was a complete mystery. So to them, it was probably the gods, disappearing stars, disappearing sun, rising sun, setting sun, and all of that had to be explained in a way which they could understand. We know exactly where we are in the universe, but they did not.
Wow, it really is fascinating. And Tom, astronomy was an early passion for yours. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, yes. I was, I think, about 10 when I was walking out with my brother, and I remember seeing a fantastic meteor shower. And I think that's what really instilled me to get involved in astronomy.
An obsession with the sun, Frank, I suppose, has been something that has connected diverse global cultures for years. Why is that?
It is the largest body in the sky. It gives warmth, it gives light, and it creates darkness in a way by disappearing. So it rises and sets in a way which is easily observed, and it moves along the horizon through the air. So for anybody who had nothing to do with astronomy, just watching the sun day on day on day, as people here do now, they notice that week on week, as you get to this time of the year, the sun's apparent position in the horizons, rising and setting, begins to slow down and approaches a point for about a week or so. It doesn't move at all as it rises. And that's called the turning point, or the solstice, meaning stand still. And that point in the year, particularly the winter solstice, where we're now at, was culturally so important for many cultures throughout history and across the world. It's so well documented that we have little doubt that they revered the solstice as a turning point. And it was full of mystery and charged with kind of meaning. And they celebrated that by, in some cases, aligning some of their tombs, particularly passage tombs, we know, on the solstice sunrise in particular. So that's why we're here today, to celebrate that.
Well, we're looking at images now of the horizon, and as we can see, the sun is nowhere in sight. We're waiting for the sun to break through. Yeah. A miracle might happen. The weather changes so often here in Ireland, but we're looking at the light box here, Tom, and moving to the present day. How has the alignment of the sun changed coming through the light box compared to how it was 5,000 years ago?
It was very different 5,000 years ago. I think most people would be familiar with the fact that the seasons are due to the tilt of the Earth. And during the summer, we're actually facing towards the sun and it's warmer and brighter, and during the winter, we're facing away. But the tilt of the Earth, when Newgrange was built, was actually different than it is now. So now it's 23.5 degrees, back then it was 24. And this changes on a sort of 40,000 year period. But it meant that the longest day of the year back then was longer than now, just a number of minutes longer, and the shortest day was equally shorter as well. So Newgrange is perfectly aligned for around 3,200 BC, but it's now misaligned. So if you actually go into the chamber, you have to wait 11 minutes after sunrise before the sun actually comes in. But back then it would have come in to the chamber immediately on sunrise. And another effect of it, if you go in there, you'll see, well, maybe not today, but on a good day, you'll actually see the sun stop short of the back wall. But that's because the sun has already risen a bit. But back then, it would have actually just touched the back wall. So
it was
the whole show has changed. And if we'll wait another 40,000 years or so, it'll be perfect again.
I've nothing on, I can wait around. We're joined again now by Nicola O'Grady from the Office of Public Works, or OPW. Nicola, we're not looking great for this morning, but for people who have just joined us, can you give us a background again on Newgrange and how it was rediscovered 50 years ago?
Well, the alignment of Newgrange was rediscovered by Professor O'Kelly during the excavations, which he started in 1962. And the roof box was found in the second season of excavation. And they were fairly certain that there was some sort of orientation because of the direction the passage was facing. And local stories, of course, from folklore, suggested that the sun reached the chamber. But he didn't verify the activity until 50 years ago, because obviously weather dependent, we have to wait for a lovely, clear, frosty, bright morning for the sun to clear the horizon and shine through that wonderful mechanism to reach as far as the chamber. And it was December 1967 that he witnessed it for the first time in modern history. So that's a really exciting time for us as guides to be able to bring people to the site and share with them the experience of waiting. It's all weather dependent for the sun to reach the chamber, but even the fact of keeping vigil, as our ancestors did, is still very special for us, and we love to share that with the members of the public.
So you have been inside the chamber when the sun hasn't broken through, and when it has. Do people still enjoy the experience, and do they still feel a special sense of connection here with Newgrange and the people who went before them?
Absolutely, because even the people who are inside are still part of an extremely privileged group of people. The chamber is so small, we only have room for about 20 people inside at any given time. So our lottery winners, those people who've entered our draw, which takes place every September, for the opportunity to be inside, are still a very privileged group of people, because we could have over 100,000 people a year visiting this site, but we only have 100 places inside for the week that we watch for the sun.
And it's important to mention for our visitors at home that only 10 Lucky Solstice lottery winners and their guests get to witness this phenomenon from inside the chamber. But you, of course, and anyone can visit Newgrange and visit the chamber all year round. You're open apart from 2 or 3 days of the year, Nicola, aren't you?
We are indeed. Now, obviously, to conserve the monument, access is limited because we want to make sure that we are custodians of this site and it continues to be accessible to people long into the future. So there is restricted access, but we only close for 4 days. So sometimes it's better to make a visit in the off season when it's not as busy, and we have online booking available now as well. So that is also a possibility for visitors.
So on a bright day when the light comes shining through, can you explain to us again, Tom, of what happens when the light hits the chamber?
So when the light hits the chamber, it actually goes through the roof box, goes to about a metre away from the back wall, and you see initially a very thin beam of light, and as the sun comes around, that broadens up. So, but back 3200 BC would have been broad right from the beginning. And the other interesting thing is if you actually go to the back chamber and look towards the roof box, right, the actual height of the roof box is what astronomers call half degree. In other words, the same size as the sun. So once the sun rose, it would actually be framed in the roof box as seen from the back. So it was all very deliberate. It's a three-dimensional problem as well, because actually if you go in there, you realize you have to walk up, right? And you walk up about 18 metres and then you are at the same level as the roof box. So they kind of solved not only an astronomical problem, but a three-dimensional problem.
And it was 5,000 years ago. It's worth mentioning that. How special and significant is Newgrange compared to other features around the world or other monuments?
Well, in Ireland we now know that there are 17 sites like Newgrange, old passage tombs, which are aligned on the solstice. And that's roughly split equally between winter and summer, rising and setting. So across the island of Ireland, top to bottom, we have about 17 sites where people will gather, just as here, not all of them as popular as here or indeed as well known. But nonetheless, we have a rich tradition of solstitial alignments in Ireland. And then offshore, if you go to the Isle of Anglesey, there's a famous passage tomb there that has a summer solstice sunrise. Up at Scotland, in Orkney, and you have Maze Howe, the famous passage tomb there, and that's a midwinter sunset alignment. So across the British Isles and Ireland, you have a number of small sites. Not all of them are aligned in this way, and we can explain why and the numbers that are aligned in different ways, and we have reasons and answers and questions to pose about that. It's a complicated story. But for us here today, being at Newgrange at summer solstice and winter solstice in particular for here, is a special time of magical excitement, and it's something that hopefully if the clouds clear we will get to witness. If not today, then maybe tomorrow.
Exactly.
But that's the excitement.
And why is Newgrange from an astronomy point of view so significant?
I think the the length of the passage, the roof box in particular, is special. There's no other passage tomb that I know of, or archaeologists know of, that have a roof box structure. Newgrange is special in that regard, and Professor O'Kelly's discovery of the roof box made, I think, Newgrange hit the world headlines for all of the reasons that we've been talking about. But I think the phenomenon of entering into the passage, being in the chamber, and it's a special chamber, corbelled roof, gigantic, and it's illuminated in this very special way. Tom mentioned the tilt of the Earth's axis changing over time and how in 3000 BC the sun was more central to the roof box, and that natural cycle of tilt change will continue. And sadly, going forward several thousand years, Newgrange will probably lose light, because not only will the sun move on the horizon millennium on millennium, but the great stones that line the passage have actually leaned inwards over time. There's a structural engineering problem there that they didn't quite get right, and they couldn't have anticipated
They
that.
got most things right.
They got most things right, so we can't blame them. And the engineers and the architects are long dead, so we'll have to kind of forgive them for that.
The corbelled roof hasn't leaked in 5,000 years. I mean, you wouldn't get that guarantee.
No, you wouldn't get those builders these days. For those of you at home joining us from all over the world, we are here live at Newgrange for this special live stream broadcast of the Winter Solstice. The reason we are not inside the chamber or seeing the light inside the chamber at the moment is, of course, because of the weather. It is quite foggy, as you can see, and cloudy. I've been informed that a perfect day here for the Winter Solstice is a cold, dry, cloudless day. We don't ask for much here in Ireland, but it doesn't look likely this morning. But of course, there are people still inside enjoying and experiencing how special it is inside that chamber, Nicola.
They are indeed, and it is a great sense of waiting and hoping. With modern technology, with our lives the way they are, we have very little time of quiet contemplation and almost no chance of absolute darkness. There's always ambient light, there's light from our phones, watches, street lighting. So when we bring the group into the chamber, we turn out the lights almost immediately. Just allow people to get their bearings and make sure that if there is a chance of sun, that they're sharing it with their significant other. And then we turn out the lights and we wait. In quiet times, there can be chat. Sometimes people are nervous if there's too much quiet and darkness, and other people feel it's a chance to look inwards. So even when there is no sun, it's still a great sense of communing with each other, with the ancestors, with our own thoughts, and it's a great time. When the days are so short and dark in the winter time, we rarely get a chance to have that quiet contemplation anymore. Our lives are so frantic, we're running 24/7, but this is a chance for people to just take a moment to think about things, to share with other people, to hope, anticipation. And even when there is no sun, daylight, once the sun is above the horizon, can still go through the roof box. So there will be a change in the light inside. And as that light grows, and as our eyes become more accustomed to the darkness, we begin to see the features of the chamber. Not as brightly illuminated as when the sun enters, but you still have that sense that night is over, day has broken, and we can move on, we can look forward. And as farmers who built Newgrange, marking the end of the winter and the hope of spring was such a huge transition. It gave them the hope that although their food stocks were growing low, there would be the chance to plant, to look forward to the harvest, and the sense of renewal would come again.
And that is why people are still gathered around here. Of course, there are people who have come from all over the world. Only 20 people get to go inside the chamber itself, but you have people gathering all year round, as I said, and especially today and tomorrow. And how many days leading up to the solstice itself would you expect or hope that the solstice would happen?
We begin our solstice watch on the 18th of December and we continue right through to the 23rd. We watch on each of those mornings. The lottery winners are drawn completely at random, and we will have people gathering here later today, not for dawn, but to take the tour of the site. People come to Newgrange as a sense of pilgrimage all year round, and they come for their own personal reasons, not just because it's a tourist attraction in their minds, but sometimes it's somewhere that they visited as a child, they return with their families, maybe they make a promise to somebody that they will come back to Ireland, revisit Newgrange, and there's always that sense of purpose behind people's visit. Even though they might think it might be random, generally something draws people to the site. It's like a magnet, like a beacon in the landscape almost, with the beautiful white quartz drawing the light to the site and drawing visitors as well.
What would have been the challenges of building such a monument of this magnitude?
Well, as Frank already mentioned it, the word solstice means standing sun. So actually the sun a few days either side doesn't really change its pattern in terms of rising and setting. So all they would have had to do was find a few clear days. Maybe it was better then than now.
It is still Ireland.
It's still Ireland. And then what they'd actually have to stake out the direction. And so I would think over certainly a couple of years they would have got pretty high precision. And then of course then they have to build the monument on top of that, which is another architectural feat and engineering feat. But actually finding the alignment would have been relatively straightforward. And it's very interesting. There's one bit of the art here which actually does fascinate me, and it's the spiral pattern. And one explanation of the spiral pattern, if you think about it, if you look at it from a prehistoric man or woman's perspective, you see the sun rising and the sun setting, and then it would go below the horizon, and then every day would get a little bit closer to the south, and basically you'd end up with a spiral. And then of course the spiral would unwind at the solstice. So maybe that's what it means. Of course, we really don't know. We don't have a manual.
It's all probably.
We don't have a manual for the place. That's the problem, you know.
The engineering of the mound has actually fascinated me over time. And if you think about the massive material that's in this cairn, so right behind us we have a quartz facade. Now it's somewhat artificial and was reconstructed, but the innards are quite okay. They have not changed, but the outside has been sort of fashioned, I suppose, to accommodate the modern visitor to an extent, and to hold back the huge tonnage of rolled stones and earth that are inside that cairn. But they travelled far to actually collect the gigantic stones and also the special quartz, which has huge symbolic meaning in prehistory. And it culturally meant an awful lot to actually facade this monument with white quartz, which reflects the sun. There's a big debate about whether the quartz should be up there or we should be standing on it, but that aside, quartz and the granite boulders inside the quartz, they came from the Wicklow Hills. Then they went up to Clogherhead to fetch more of the other gigantic stones which make up most of the monument as well. So huge effort. And think about how they might have got those here, by log rolling, by perhaps water transport on gigantic barges, who knows. But the effort to actually quarry and hew these stones and bring them here, and then bring them from the bottom of the valley up to the top of a ridge on which we're standing, that was a huge investment in labour. And then the mound material would have been probably scraped from the terrain all around here and brought on sacks on people's backs, you know, by sheer hard work. So why do they do that, and how long did it take? Those are huge questions for archaeologists, and we can only estimate, because we don't know the actual size of population that was here. We can guess, but it is a guess. So therefore, building this, was it 20 years, was it 30 years, was it a lifetime? How long did people live in those times? Probably about 30, 40 years maximum, on average. So a generation to build, perhaps, or longer.
It's absolutely amazing how dedicated they were to building this monument. And as we look inside the chamber now, we see a sliver of light breaking through. It's just hitting the walls inside the chamber itself. But as we said, it's a real foggy morning here in Newgrange in Ireland's ancient east, and we won't get the ray of sun or the thread of gold, Nicola, that you would expect on a clear morning.
Exactly. This is the kind of the daylight. So you still have that sense that night is over, but the change when the sun enters is just something extraordinary. And the colour changes as well, because if you ever watch a sunrise or sunset, they tend to have different colours. So sometimes it's almost like molten gold shimmering across the floor of the chamber. Sometimes there's a pink or a rosy hue, and of course the photograph we have been able to capture is that really rich amber. So there's a great sense of warmth. And quite often when you have a successful morning, people are drawn to place their hands into the beam of light as if they're trying to absorb the energy of the sun and perhaps bring that energy back out into the world and transfer it. So this sense of hope and enjoyment and peace and calm, there's a myriad of emotions that people will be experiencing inside, and especially on a day like today when we have no sun, they have that sense of time to think and to deal with their own emotions, and it can be very special for people even when there is no sun.
It might be worth mentioning up at Slieve Gullion, where there is a sunset phenomena this week at the Winter Solstice. One American couple some years ago were moved to actually get married in the chamber, and a proposal was made. So that's the kind of inspiration that can happen. I don't know whether they're still married.
Are you getting down on one knee now this morning, Frank?
I'm going nowhere.
Neither am I.
Looking at the quartz behind us there, I was speaking to a few people, experts when it comes to the weather, and they were telling me that they can tell whether it's going to be a clear morning by looking at the quartz. Was that one of the reasons why quartz was picked, do you think?
I think it is possibly, and it has a sense of gathering the energy, and we still use quartz in our modern technological equipment. But also I always think it's really interesting if you visit an Irish cemetery and there's always at least one or two graves that have chippings of white on it. Generally speaking, it's quartz, and that again gives this sense of continuity, the energy of the stone. People use quartz and other natural elements for healing, for channeling energy, for getting rid of negativity, and the quartz would have drawn people here. And I sometimes think maybe people were bringing their quartz to the site as an offering to the monument, as a sense of sharing the labour, giving a sense of ownership to the site as well, bringing people from the hinterland into the area and giving them a sense that this is a huge communal effort, and people can then, over generations down through time, return to Newgrange on pilgrimage, as they're still doing today, 5,000 years later.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're coming to you live here from Newgrange in Ireland's ancient east for the winter solstice. The reason why we're not seeing a beam of light inside the chamber, the 5,000-year-old chamber behind me here now, is because of the sun. It is not seen here right now on the horizon. All we see are clouds and fog. It is Ireland after all, but still the crowds of people have gathered here at Newgrange, and I'm going to meet with some of the crowds here now who have travelled from Ireland and overseas to be here this morning. So who have we got here? We'll go into the crowd. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, are you?
Very well now. So who are you and where have you come from?
We are coming from Venezuela. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, very far away.
Very far away. And have you come to Ireland especially for the winter solstice?
Yeah, that's it. We are coming just to Newgrange, just to visit and have a good experience here, yeah.
And how did you hear about Newgrange?
Well, usually we in Venezuela we have many stuff we are learning in the university about the different structure like this one around the world. So that's why we are coming here.
And is there anything like this in your country, in Venezuela?
Yes, of course. We have well, not like this one, but we have different places as well. Like, for example, we have the angel, just forgot it right now because the first time.
That's okay. You're doing great. So come on in here and help your friend out. What's your own name?
Maria Delgado.
And how are you today? And why have you come to Newgrange?
To see to have a new experience and to see the solstice of the
How would you say winter solstice in your own language?
Solsticio de verano. Solsticio de verano.
Beautiful. I won't be repeating that because it sounds very, very difficult. Are you disappointed that you didn't manage to see the sun break through this morning? Or do you still get a feeling of a unique experience being here like people were 5,000 years ago?
Yeah, it was very foggy today, but anyway, we are here, we are coming here to live this experience, and that's it. We just want to get in and enjoy, like the first time, so that's why.
And will you be staying around Ireland for a few days?
Yeah, actually for the week. Yeah.
So you'll be celebrating Christmas in Ireland. Well, don't forget there are many things that you can see and do on Ireland's ancient east. And who have we got here?
Peter McGuire.
Peter McGuire. Where have you come from, Peter?
From Kerry, but originally from Canada.
And have you travelled especially for the winter solstice?
Oh yes, we've done this. It's our fourth time now since staying in Ireland the last 3 years. Yeah.
Wow. And what is it about Newgrange that makes it so special?
There's so much about it. It's everything that's been done here, the restoration of the monument, the visitor centre, everything is just top notch. It's one of the nicest monuments in the world actually to visit, and just this time of year you just feel the energy of it. It reminds me of the difference between meaning and value. I think it was Anthony Burgess wrote that artists and people who created this definitely were artists. They do not create meaning, but they create value. But alas, again, to this society, value has no value at all. And everybody here and everybody who was involved in the restoration of this are a testimony to the struggle against that particular entropy, I believe.
And what will you take with you today? I know we didn't see the beam of light shining through the chamber, but there is still a sense of celebration and magic around Newgrange this morning.
Well, there's a great sense of peace here. It reminds me of a few other sites like this in the world, like Budna in Nepal. That's the only other one that comes to mind. And you do leave it with a change in your mind state, I believe.
And who have you brought with you? Is this your wife here?
This is the dread.
How are you? What's your own name?
My name's Andrea.
And are you from Canada as well?
I'm from Canada and recently from Kerry.
Recently from Kerry. So did you visit Newgrange when you lived in Kerry?
Yes, we've been coming for 4 years now.
Wow, and have you ever been inside the chamber and experienced the ray of light come shining through?
Well, we've never won the lottery. However, we've been in the chamber just directly after, and one year we did have sunshine and we did still see part of the beam that comes through, which was just magical.
And what are you feeling here this morning? Is there a sense of disappointment, or do you still get a feeling of celebration around Newgrange?
Oh, I think that the actual spectacle of the sun is highly overrated, and that what is amazing here is the energy that comes through from the cosmic down to the earth at this time. And the reason why we moved to Kerry, and we know the sites down there, West Cork, and there's such a lovely interconnectivity to them all.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the rest of your stay, and happy Christmas.
Okay, thank you.
So who have we got here?
My name's Fergal. How's it going, everyone?
And where are you from, Fergal?
I'm from South Dublin myself, up with my family just for the solstice today.
So you didn't have far to travel this morning.
A bit of a travel, but not as far as some of the others, I imagine.
And what interests you about Newgrange?
Well, we've been coming here for a long time. When I was younger, my family would take us up when we were younger to see the winter solstice. And I mean, while sometimes we haven't been able to see the sun fully through as today, I always enjoy coming up here just for the sense of the scale and spectacle. As mentioned before, that that this monument is kind of like the land. It's a testament to time and to how a group of people have had a different culture and perspective and made their mark on the landscape, and how it's lasted all the way up to the present time, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And have you been inside the chamber itself?
I have been several times, and while I haven't actually seen the sunlight enter the chamber before, I always do enjoy entering into the chamber just to see it, and to experience what it was like back then, if that makes sense also.
And what will you take with you today from Newgrange?
I suppose, again, as I mentioned before, just the sense of tranquility, and that's, the admiration of the ability of these people to make such a building on such a monument, on such a scale that it's been able to last the test of time.
Well, we hope you enjoy the rest of your stay. And who have we got here?
I'm Trish. Hi.
Trish, where did you come from?
Came from Wicklow today.
So you didn't have far to travel either?
Not too far, yes.
And have you been to Newgrange before? This your first time?
No, come every year. And I come really to give gratitude and to celebrate this time of year, and for all that's precious in life, and for all that's precious to me, because life is a precious gift that we've been given. And also then on a very real level, the preciousness of the relationship between the earth and the sun, and how real that is, and how every year at this time, there's almost like, the solstice is like pausing. There's like a pause, and then we turn again to the light. And so it's sending a blessing as well to all of life, that we can keep this right relationship, that we can keep our earth in a balance, because it seems like there's lots going out of balance at the moment, and like our ancestors and those that went before kind of knew this right relationship, and so it's to honour that, and just
So the winter solstice is very special and personal to you.
Yes, it is, but it's also more than that. It's like understanding our place as humans within life. Like, we're a strand, but we seem to have separated ourselves just a little bit too much from life, and from keeping things in balance. So You know, we have the fire coming in, the light coming in, and you know, it's very real for people in California at the moment that there's wildfires, so the fires are very much out of balance, and it may be something that's just on the TV for us now, but it's very real, and it gives us an understanding that you know, that there's something gone out of balance on the earth at the moment, and so it's times like this is to remember. You know, ask for everything to come back, the fire to come back into a balance, the earth to come back into a balance, the waters and the air, so that we can play our part.
Well, very beautifully put, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your morning. A reminder for everyone who is watching at home, the reason we are not inside the chamber itself is, of course, because it is cloudy and the light hasn't broken through into the chamber, illuminating the chamber like it does on the shortest days of the year. But this is Ireland, and this is the weather that we have in Ireland. It is certainly unpredictable. But you, of course, can visit Newgrange in Ireland's ancient East all year round, and you can book your tickets online, and you can enter the chamber and see and experience what it is like inside. And be sure to let us know where you're watching from this morning on the hashtag Solstice 2017. Now, who are you?
I'm Ali.
And Ali, where have you come from?
Wait, do you mean where was I born or where was I?
Both. Tell me both.
I was born in West Cork, and I came here from Castle Dermot.
Right. So, have you been to Newgrange before?
Yes, once.
And what did you think of it?
I thought that it was just an amazing place. Like, thinking about it, this is the first historical monument that is in Ireland.
And why do you think Newgrange is so special?
I think that it was made by people, which as a gathering place, and just to, you know,
5,000 years ago that they were able to make a monument of this magnitude.
Yes.
It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And are you enjoying this morning?
Yes, I am.
Even though the sun hasn't come through?
No, yeah.
It doesn't matter to you?
Doesn't matter.
Well, enjoy the rest of your stay here at Newgrange. We're going to head back up here, and it is very disappointing that we don't have the ray of light coming through, the thread of gold coming through the chamber this morning. But as you heard there from all the people that have gathered around Newgrange this morning, that it's still very special to them that they are here on Newgrange on this special day. And all these people are staying around because they feel and they are getting something special from it, Nicola.
Absolutely, and people come, it might be just something that someone mentions to them in passing, something that they have to visit, or they've read an article online, and they don't really realise until they get here the sense of kind of community and gathering that these sites would have represented in ancient times and right up into modern times. And it's wonderful to hear this almost Tower of Babel-like variety of different languages that you encounter, and people are sharing experiences. They sometimes will bond with other people on the bus over from the visitor centre, because when they visit, they leave their cars at the visitor centre, they're brought across the River Boyne into the sacred landscape, onto a bus, and then transported up to the site, where generally speaking there isn't all this activity. There'll be very few cars and vehicles in the area, so they get to experience a natural rural landscape. And some people who are travelling maybe from heavily densely populated areas, this is a real sense of returning to the beautiful Irish countryside, seeing the jewelled landscape that we have laid out in front of us, and getting a chance to step back into what is universal heritage. Newgrange is part of a World Heritage Complex, and we're very proud of that, but it's something which is universally human. People all over the world thousands of years ago were trying to leave their mark on the landscape, trying to remember loved ones, coming together to celebrate ritual, to mark the milestones of their lives, birth, death, rebirth. All of these senses would have been important, and people come here and they each get to draw whatever they need from the site, whether it's just the pure experience of the engineering marvel that is Newgrange, or the beauty of the art that we have here at Newgrange, and the wonderful site of Nowth, which is like a gallery of ancient art.
Yes, it's worth mentioning Nowth and Dowth, which are on Brunabonia as well, for people who are unfamiliar with this area. Could you tell us a little bit more about Brunabonia itself?
We see Newgrange is so famous because the entrance to this tomb was rediscovered in 1699. So from that point of view, it's been a place that people have visited on the Grand Tour in the 19th century, and we even have graffiti inside the chamber from that. But the excavations beginning here in 1962 at Newgrange were echoed at the wonderful site of Nowth by Professor Ogan, who began a 40-year excavation of that site. And the treasures yielded by Nowth are absolutely incredible. The mound itself is bigger than the Great Mound here at Newgrange. It has 2 passages within that mound which are sadly no longer accessible because of the weight of the construction has damaged the internal structures. They're still intact, but they're not safe enough for us to bring people in. So when we guide people around Nowth, they're looking at almost 6,000 years of Irish history, because there's evidence of pre-tomb activity on the site where people were living there, maybe carrying out their rituals before they began to put the passage tombs together. And then they built a complex of passage graves within the complex, which is the Bend of the Boyne, because the Great Mound of Nowth is surrounded by a series of smaller passage tombs. And then you've all the other complicated history of the site, Bronze Age activity, Iron Age activity, right up into the post-medieval phase. People were living and working and using that site for ritual. And then it lay hidden in the landscape, a huge mound, but the mythology and the superstition was not quite as powerful as that here at Newgrange. And then when they began to excavate, of course, they opened up this huge treasure trove. And we also run tours from the visitor centre to the site at Nowth in the summertime. It's a very different experience because the site is so much larger, but not as well known. So we get to bring people and introduce them to the monuments and then tell them about other places in the area, like Slieve Gullion, like other monuments if they have a particular interest in prehistory, or of course the wonderful sites of Monaster Boyce with the beautiful high crosses, continuing that amazing tradition of ritual art, and all of the other treasures that we have in the Bend of the Boyne and further afield. So although Newgrange traditionally was somewhere people arrived, they visited, they moved on, not even knowing what else was here, we get the chance for them to have a moment to think and then to see what else they want to visit and taste the different 6,000 years of history that Ireland has.
Absolutely, because it's worth mentioning that Newgrange is only one of the jewels that can be visited in Ireland's ancient East, and we're looking inside the chamber at the moment. We've turned on the lights with the use of modern technology, electricity, and we see people inside the chamber looking at the walls, the spiral. There will be spiral carvings inside the chamber as well.
There's a huge collection of art inside, and the entrance stone is such a large example of passage grave art, but the carvings inside are much smaller, they're quite discreet in places, so we allow people the opportunity to just glance around the site. They'll be drawn to patterns, maybe geometric designs, or the beautiful tri-spiral that we saw there for a moment. The tri-spiral, of course, echoed on the entrance stone, but there are so many different varieties of art that people get a chance to be up close and personal with something that was carved 5,000 years ago with a piece of flint or a similar type of stone, and you can see the individual strike point as they picked and dressed the stone to create these masterpieces of ancient art.
It looks like people don't want to leave the chamber. They're in there, they're looking around. Nobody looks disappointed or heartbroken. It must be a real special feel inside there. Tom, have you experienced it?
I have, yes, a number of years ago. In fact, I remember a visit by the then Taoiseach, Charles Haughey, and he arrived here and it was a cloudy morning like this, but fortunately, the clouds parted like Moses and the Red Sea, and we had a wonderful display inside.
He had a direct line, you see. What about you, Frank? Have you experienced the solstice?
On a few rare occasions, I was very privileged to be in the chamber, and then there are others. I just reflect on a story I heard about the legendary astronomer Patrick Moore, and he was invited here. And unfortunately, the passage wasn't wide enough to accommodate his large frame, so he didn't get in.
Right.
And for me, that was a tragedy, because somebody of that eminence could not get into a chamber. But Nicola was mentioning there about the art, and I think we can be very proud about our tradition and heritage here, because it was, I think, Professor Ogan who quantified the amount of megalithic art in Ireland. Compared to the whole of the rest of Western Europe, we have 80% of the megalithic art on this island between Loughrew and the Boyne Valley, and that is an astonishing statistic and something which we can be justifiably proud of as a nation.
You wrote an article recently in Archaeology Ireland on the winter solstice. Why do you think it is so special to people?
I think the time of year, as Tom said, it's the turning point of the year, and as Nicola said, it's the transition between the end of winter, or we're partially through the winter season, and we're moving into spring. And bear in mind that the people who built these monuments are farming societies. That is the key. They are agricultural people. They are land-based, and they are all about survival, and they need to have their crops safely harvested for the winter, and then running through their storage of food, begin to think about the new season ahead. And that winter is in effect that transition, that end point, that marking point between one season and the next, but at a critical time of year. I think much more so than at summer solstice, because at summer solstice you're sort of halfway through, in a sense, the warm season. But the winter time is much more threatening and much more challenging. And for that reason, and also I think the darkness. And that is what solstice for me is all about. That shortest days of year when we have minimal light, and most of our time we're spending in darkness. That is still the way, even though our world is becoming increasingly illuminated now and we're losing our sky vision. But in Neolithic times, and it's hard to put ourselves in that mindset, because think back to 5,000 years ago, how did they perceive the world? The disappearing sun, the kind of 10 hours or more of darkness for quite a number of weeks. That must have been a sort of a mysterious time, and I think it still is for us as well.
Absolutely, and it is worth reminding people again that it was only rediscovered 50 years ago. That this phenomenon went unknown for so long, Nicola, is quite amazing.
It is. It's almost like Newgrange was holding on to its secret for a very long time. We had obviously had access to the structure from 1699, but there is evidence that people were coming on pilgrimage to Newgrange long after the outer wall had fallen and the passage was concealed, because there was a hoard of Roman artefacts found on the top of the mound at one point. So it gives a sense that people have always been drawn to this site, and even the later ritual activity that was found here, a wood henge, possibly the standing stones were part of a great stone circle. It shows the continued use of the site, but also that it holds a draw. It's like a magnet bringing people here to the area. And then when the roof box was rediscovered, of course, Newgrange was just the phenomenon that it is today. And it's such a special thing. Sometimes we can be very blasé in modern life, and we're so used to spectacles. But this is one of the last true spectacles, because nothing's guaranteed. And we're in the kind of era of instant gratification. Everything can be Googled instantly. All experiences are open. But this is something which, if you're lucky, or as I had a visitor yesterday said, it's fate. Fate decides whether or not you're going to see the sun. You could be lucky, make the correct sacrifices, whatever needs to happen. But it is all about luck and timing and the opportunity that it presents.
But as we heard there, it is truly special and truly unique to be here, even when the sun doesn't shine through.
Absolutely. I think the solstice divides, really, in a sense, the optimist from the pessimist. The people who say the glass is half full versus half empty. Because as soon as the solstice is over, tomorrow, you can start to say, there's a stretch in the evenings.
Yes.
And there are equally a lot of people who, as soon as the summer solstice is over, start going, oh, it's getting darker, and look rather glum. So, you know.
Well, we do love talking about the weather here in Ireland. And it's worth reminding people that we will be live from Newgrange tomorrow morning as well for the winter solstice. And you never know, we might be lucky, we might get that breakthrough in the clouds and see the light coming through, illuminating the chamber. And we will have visitors from all over the world again tomorrow. But our visitors who are inside the chamber, the 20 people who managed to get inside the chamber, they are our 10 lottery winners, and their 10 guests managed to get inside the chamber. As you can tell, they're still inside there taking photographs. Some of them are making their way out, and we have queues of people who've been here this morning outside the chamber itself, who are making their way into the chamber now, waiting patiently for the people inside the chamber to make way for them so they can experience what it's like inside the chamber. And we are again going to remind you that you can come and visit Newgrange all year round. You can book your tickets online, and it is a very, very special place. And we hope wherever you've been watching this morning that you are able to bring or experience some of this magic that we could experience. Even though we didn't get the sun this morning, there is still a true sense of celebration around Newgrange, and that you enjoyed experiencing this ancient phenomenon that happened 5,000 years ago and was rediscovered 50 years ago. Wherever you're watching in the world, be sure to contact us and let let us know where you are watching from using the hashtag Solstice2017. And remember, there are any number of things that you can do all year round here in Ireland's ancient East. Newgrange is just one of them. Be sure to check out the website and discover a wonderful region full of ancient legends and stories from ancient times to modern day. Well, Sinead Wenya and Cha Armad and Why She and Vru, Tasulangar Wanchib Tanyav, Asan Okad Special Tisha. Thank you for joining us on this special morning. We'll be back with you live from Newgrange tomorrow morning. Gadishan Wenya Arfad and Cha, Slán Aggie.